Hi everyone, so in this video what I want to talk about is growing up without a parent due to abandonment or bereavement. So growing up without a parent is difficult for any child at any age, and it's also even difficult for adults. But imagine if you've grown up in a situation where you were very young, and I meet lots of people through my work but also in my personal life who have lost parents when they were either in their teens, or also recently I've watched a program where someone very famous, I won't say his name, he lost his parent when he was 10 years old, and he talked about, you know, the pain of growing up without having the mother there. And I suppose some of the things that come up are that you miss out on that relationship, that mother-daughter, mother-son, you know, father-son, father-daughter relationship, because it just hasn't happened. But also you miss out on some of the common things that other people around you are probably experiencing. So there could be things of, you know, learning certain life lessons that you would have learnt from a parent, but they're no longer there. Things that traits and characteristics that you would get from that parent, especially if you were really young when they passed away. You wouldn't know that you're like your mother and you act like that because you've never had time to experience being around your mother. You wouldn't know that, you know, these are some of your favourite things that your father liked. It's about whether family will pass that information on to you. And I've met people who don't have any knowledge or haven't been told a lot of history about their parent who died when they were quite young. And it's just, to me, I don't understand that, because, you know, as the surviving family, to me it's very important that they pass on those stories, because how else is that child, when they're an adult, going to know what their parent was like unless someone tells them, you know, your mum used to do this, or your dad. And I know the reasons behind it, because probably the family is still struggling and they're grieving as well, and they don't want to keep talking about this person who's gone. But for the child who isn't, you know, doesn't know who their mum or dad was, sometimes they don't even have a photo of what their parent looks like. That can be very traumatic, and it is traumatic because people will say that. So some of the other things that can come up is mixed feelings about yourself, you know, rejection, even though that parent has, this is usually with abandonment more than with bereavement, because if someone dies, obviously they don't get a choice in the matter, and that can be for many reasons, and the child isn't necessarily going to think, well, my mum died or my dad died, and that's and get angry with them. They still might, because it's that feelings of when you're going through grief, you know, being angry with the person because they're not there. But abandonment, definitely anger would be one of the things there. You know, resentment, why have you left me, you know, and what's wrong with me, why didn't you stay? And in a lot of cases the parent will abandon a child more because of the relationship that they're in, and that's not working. But a child isn't going to see it that way. All they see is that my mother or my father left and they didn't want me. And that can bring up loads of issues when you're an adult, because if your own parent has abandoned you, then you're not going to be able to trust that another person coming into your life is going to remain constant. It's almost like your brain is going to say to you, well, why should I trust this person, and why should I believe them? Other feelings are things about feeling lost, you know, feeling, who am I? Who am I as a person? I haven't got this blueprint or role model of a parent to look up to. So who am I? You know, how can I be fully whole within myself when I've got no one to look at, no one to look up to? And that can cause a lot of uncertainty about like who you are as a person. And that's where, as I've said, surviving family members have got a responsibility to step in and fill those gaps for the person. Because the more that can happen, and that's the same as with fostering or adoption or any situation where a child grows up without their birth parents, it is possible to fill those gaps to a certain degree if they receive nurture, love, protection from other sources. But it's when that gap isn't filled. So, you know, there'll be situations where family members will not talk about the parent who's gone, and they won't allow it. They won't allow discussions. They won't allow photos. They won't allow you know, any of the person's belongings. And all that's doing is that's creating a sense within the surviving child of what's going on here, who am I, you know, and why has this person just been blocked out of my life? Why has this person just been almost erased from the picture when I know that they're my parents. And the final thing is a child sometimes goes into survival mode. I've talked about it a little bit there. Difficult to trust other people, but also just becomes really hardened to the world. You know, my mum left me and abandoned me, so why should I be nice to anyone? You know, there's something that's got to be wrong with me as a person, so I'm going to live up to that. I'm going to become this like really horrible person because it will push people away before they push me away. So it's like sabotage, survival mode. You know, when you see some people that they are just unkind, they're just cruel, they're whatever, there's always something underlying it. I don't personally believe that people are just naturally horrible people, or that they naturally do horrible things to others or hurt others. There's always something going on underneath. And if you're the first caregiver in your life is your parents, so if they abandon you or they mistreat you or they abuse you, that is like a blueprint there that says something's got to be wrong with me, because the normal or natural thing is for a parent to love me. So if they don't do that, it's not their fault. That's got to be to do with me. So some of these things are just to consider. And I would say that if anyone is struggling with things around this area, you know, feeling that you were abandoned or that you did struggle and suffer a bereavement, but you now are struggling in your adult years, it's always a good idea to sit down and talk to someone. I would say counselling really does help. It can't change the situation, but it can reframe things and it can put things into perspective for you. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please feel free to leave your comments, to like the video if you found it useful, and to share it if you feel that others will benefit. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye.